The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to the Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
All right, well, now that we have a recording device, so hey, everybody, welcome to the Winemakers. I am John Myers, along with Sam Couturi.
Is it happening?
Bart Hansen, Brian hanging around here, and very special guest today. This is really cool today. Thank you for coming. Abby Peterson, editor-in-chief of Sonoma Magazine.
Oh, you guys.
Oh yeah, nice. And I'm looking at
You're not pouring the wine?
Who's pouring the wine?
Pour, John.
I didn't.
Nobody.
John, well, do one now.
John's one arm.
Do one now. You don't have a microphone, dude.
It's our first day, Abby.
We would tell you that this isn't what it's normally like. But
We're on brand. You know what? It's easy. He didn't have a mic. That's it. Anyway, so what a beautiful cover. You guys want to actually pay attention here and help out?
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Abby, you have a beautiful issue of Sonoma Magazine right here on the table. It's looking awesome. This whole thing's falling apart, and I'm having fun. Anyway, we're talking about iconic vineyards in Sonoma County, and it looks beautiful because why? James Joyner.
Why is it beautiful, James?
James,
what was the question? Sorry, I was doodling.
You were busy.
I was trying to get Bart to punch
the
me.
principal's office. Well, you got to go see Diddy.
I think you're the principal. Diddy's the headmistress.
Yeah.
Whoa. Sorry, what's the question?
I didn't have one. I was introducing you. I was actually, should I say that you are a photographer? And
I'm a guy who makes
a
stuff.
winemaker.
I am not a winemaker.
I thought you were opening a brand.
Oh, well, that's right. Marrielle and I are starting a winery. It's called 17700, and we're only using fermented beets.
There you go.
I wish you the best of
Sounds
luck.
delicious.
Listen, it's natural.
Sugar beets?
I don't know, beets.
I bet your sugar beets would ferment.
Beets from the store.
He'll probably get a
Kinda
place
same
out by
list.
Colorado, Colorado.
Beets and water. Sure.
Beets and water, right?
Right? Sugar, beets, and water.
Vodka.
Vodka.
Maybe you've heard of it. It's called vodka.
Well, but then you have to have a still. Although I
haven't
have
sat still in years.
although I have made a still on top of a stovetop before. It's effective.
It's called a gravity bong. You're confused.
So, hey, James, welcome. And you have a wonderful partner here this morning, Marrielle Tinsley, photographer, character
see me, but
around
I'm
town, winemaker, local legend, hero,
Hero. Wow. Okay.
actor.
On occasion.
So,
say-
all good. And Rhodes
forgot seer.
Scholar.
Seer.
So, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Abby.
And also, competitive ping pong player.
Yes.
Whoa.
Can we actually let's pause everything right now and talk about the fact that Marrielle over here spent her summers as a teenager. It's omnidirectional.
Not really.
It's not.
Okay.
In
Spent
your
her
mind.
summers. She's giving me a dirty look.
This is part of my lore. This is my official coming out as.
Listening only to one CD and playing ping pong in China.
It's true.
Okay.
It's true.
Moving on.
How competitive is that? How many do you hit in like 10 seconds?
I was so competitive that I spent every summer from about age, the first time I went was 10. My parents dropped me off. They said, good luck. And I said, are you guys staying? And they said, no, you'll be fine. And
Did they dropped you off at the airport?
No, they dropped me off at this international sports school, and I stayed 3 months there, not speaking a lick of Chinese or Mandarin, and played every day.
Spoke the language of ping pong.
I spoke with my eyes. It was smizing. Luckily, Tyra had taught me how to communicate that way. But I played competitively for a long time.
That's cool.
It was cool.
I like it.
My brother was on the Olympic committee. We have the only table tennis club in Kern County at my parents' house.
They are fast.
They are fast. I played recently. It was fun.
And if anyone plays table tennis in Roanoke Park at that facility, please do not mention this because we're going to go clean up.
Okay. Abby, hi.
Hi.
Good. Is it morning or afternoon right now?
It started. It was morning a few minutes ago. It is now afternoon.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful magazine on the table right here, and it is a combination of not only great writing, but incredible photographs. May I say incredible, James? Is it great photographs? How would you like them?
The guy on the cover is phenomenal. You know, he was actually a very successful score writer for movies. He came here from Ireland, wanted to pursue music, and then all of a sudden he's the cover photographer for Sonoma Mag. Do you want to tell me about this? This is incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is our harvest issue, which we think is like kind of the most iconic issue of the year. It's our great celebration of, September in Sonoma Valley and in Sonoma County, and we love it. And the cover, which was shot by a photographer named Kim Carroll, who lives in Healdsburg, as James is, he's a great friend of the magazine and shoots some of our covers, many of our covers, and this particular cover was taken at Cru Vineyards. But yes, interesting, fun thing about Kim is that he is Irish, and he moved here as a teenager to be a musician in Hollywood, and he used to score films, and he's very involved in documentary filmmaking, used to run a film festival, and then made the transition to being a still photographer and so anyway, musician, filmmaker, and shoots our covers.
And this issue is about the most iconic vineyards in Sonoma Valley.
Yeah, that's our cover story. It's super fun. So when we're putting together an issue like this, which is the harvest issue, we're trying to represent sort of the breadth of what harvest means in Sonoma County. So we're trying to get at it from a number of different angles. So we have, this cover story that's very sort of packed with information and it's wines to try and places to seek out and interesting things to do. And then we have this gorgeous photo essay from this champion right here, James Joyner. That's sort of a series of very
good work. Everybody.
Very stunning portraits of local independent winemakers. And
when I see him post on Facebook, I'm always just a bit jealous. Being a photographer, I really enjoy it, etc. But, everybody has their own style. I like his. So nice work on this collaboration. And, when we look at it, so how did you come up with the wineries that you wanted to talk to? Well, what was the start of this idea?
So we work almost a whole year ahead of time on an issue like this, on a harvest issue, because we want to capture the season. And we go to press with our harvest issue before harvest starts. So some of the stories we're working a whole year ahead of time, which is kind of amazing. Like this harvest issue went to press in late July, early August.
Wow.
So before harvest starts. And so some of the stories we work a whole year ahead of time. And in our feature section, we always have one story that is very service-oriented, that's giving you a lot of information. So that's the cover story, the iconic vineyards with wines to try and all these places to go and things to check out. And then
you
one story
you got to go hang out and try their wines and have nice afternoons.
Yeah, we...
I think I'd want to extend the research phase.
Yeah, exactly. That's the good part. That's the really good part. Just really trying to get to... represent what fall is like in Sonoma County. Totally love it.
Isn't it a great place? And it is turning. You can see it. I mean, my oak leaves are starting to drop. Everything is just turning a little bit redder, rustier, that kind of thing. But, okay. James, how did you get involved in this?
In Sonoma Mag?
Or this issue.
Oh, well, originally it was going to be something else, actually. So I met Abby last year?
Yeah.
I met Abby when she profiled Phil for the Harvest issue last year. And we were out at Rossi Ranch shooting some photos. We got to talking. We have some things in common. Really?
Yes,
okay.
really.
All right. Sorry.
You're the one who complains about the sound all the time. Speak in the microphone.
What about people who are not as loud as we are?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so
He mixes.
I'm gonna get on this thing like a battle rapper here, and I'm gonna get herpes. Sorry, cut that. Anyway, sorry. I just broke John. That was worth every second of it. All right, so I met Abby last year when they were profiling Phil Couturi for the Harvest issue. I believe it was the Harvest issue, right?
Yeah. Harvest issue last year.
And then we got along famously. She had me shoot some other stuff for the magazine, which was super fun. Always one of the highlights is getting a call from her because I like exploring. I like checking out the place that I've chosen to live in, and I like meeting new people.
The article on the
Truffle dogs.
on the truffle dogs and the fishermen.
Yeah,
that was a great
that
story.
one was really fun.
Love that story.
I love those photos.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's the nicest thing he's ever said to me.
Well, Abby chose really good ones to use.
Right. The secret is to over-deliver. And then, we were circling some stuff for this issue that didn't pan out, maybe for the future. And then we had talked about this project that I'm working on, which is shooting black and white film and developing it in a non-toxic solution of red wine. I have an ongoing thing with people in the wine world that I think are interesting or compelling. So I photograph them with a medium format camera. I've partnered with Kodak, so I use their T-Max 400 or 100 film and develop it in a red wine that is meaningful to them. And she suggested that we do a series of portraits for the mag with it, which I was excited about. I've had other publications ask for this sort of thing and said no.
1 second.
Off the mic?
Wait a minute. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go
this is very
step
confusing.
outside. Developing in wine.
Uh-huh.
Tell everybody about that. It's fascinating.
Well, it's just so alternative development has been around, honestly, probably as long as film's been around. So in the 60s and 70s, they were developing black and white film and instant coffee, really anything with phenols in it. So coffee has caffeic acid. You can use a combination that makes it a base and then raises the pH again above. I'm not going to talk about this super knowledge.
No, drop it.
I don't get the detail. I don't understand the exact science. I'm going to get it wrong.
It's acidic.
That's what we're here for.
But
no, how do you? So you make it a base.
So you
and
take,
then you
take
drop
the basic
the pH
process
again.
Is you take any solution with a high level of phenols. You add soda ash to
wine,
such as wine.
Right.
You can also do it with
just
whiskey,
focus on
orange juice,
wine,
urine, all kinds of things. I'm just saying the internet's a dark place. A lot of things have been done, but
anything with
you're
acid.
spending way too much time online.
It's my job, man. Tell this guy. No. In like 2014, let's say, I had the idea of doing it in wine. I have a friend, Ian Sullivan, back on Cape Cod, who's kind of a wizard when it comes to making things and figuring things out, especially as it pertains to cameras and photography. So he went into the lab and after some trial and error kind of dialed it in. And then I took it and dialed it in further to the point where I've gotten now where every wine is different. Every wine has a different chemical makeup or different acid and structure. So I've gotten to the point now where I can taste a wine and kind of get within 90% of what the perfect ratio of the added ingredients will be to make it work. So the solution itself
you don't really need much per roll of film. If you
takes about a bottle, 500 milliliters at least.
Okay,
but
there you go. No, again,
so in a perfect world.
So what are you tasting for? When you're tasting it to see if it'll be a good
Well, they all work. What you're tasting for, what I'm tasting for, is based on. So let's back up a little bit. The process is vitamin C, so pure vitamin C, anhydrous soda, which is soda ash, and wine, and that's it. If you're using a higher speed film, you can use potassium bromide, which is a naturally occurring chemical. You can find it. It's a pool cleaner. It's like these little crystals. If you carry Ziplocs of it around, it looks very suspicious. And then, so you take the wine, you get it to room temperature, and then you put in between 40 and 60 grams of soda ash. You stir it really, really well for a while, longer than you think you have to, so it's completely dissolved. And then you add between 15 and 24 grams of pure vitamin C. And then it does this cool little foamy thing, and you're like, science, this is exciting. It's chemistry, alchemy. And then you run it through a coffee filter into your tank. that hopefully already has the film in it, because otherwise you're fucked. And then, and then, yeah, it's depending on the film stock. So I always use T-Max because of the Kodak's partnership. It's right around 12. It's basically box speed, which is a photography term for the suggested development time with regular chemicals. It's right around, I'd say 12 to 14 minutes.
Did you have a favorite shot?
From this run? Absolutely. Well, I had two favorite shots. One that we didn't have room for, that I'm sure people will see somewhere else. But my absolute favorite shot. So this is a mix of new shots.
Oh, damn.
And
Vitamin C is super acidic. Sorry to tangent on this. Vitamin C is
citric acid.
Ascorbic acid.
Yeah.
And it's 1 to a 2.5 pH. Right. So you're making it basic, and then you're adding the acid back into it. It's wild.
And there's a chemical reaction that happens.
And it's all, what is it? It's not toxic, which is crazy.
It's not. I mean, I wouldn't drink it because
no
it's acid. But the only one around here who drinks acid is Sam. But
just as a experimental trial and error.
But most people don't know. I mean, actually, black and white the film chemical process, it is pretty
not
terrible.
Yeah, you can't pour it down the drain. It's not good.
It's terrible.
Right. And depending on what mixes you use has a lot to do with how the film turns out, right?
Correct.
Because that's part of what, and I know nothing about this other than very little, is that, Ansel Adams' whole thing was the way he developed film was very much by manipulating how he was treating the film in the development phase, right?
A lot of his stuff was also the printing that he did, because there's a lot of tricks you can do in the darkroom So basically, Photoshop is the original, or the darkroom is the original Photoshop. So there's dodging and burning that you can do. This is just the development process. You can print with this. That's an entirely different thing that we're not going to get into right now.
Okay.
But basically, yes, every wine reacts a little bit differently and has a slightly different effect on the pigmentation. So it's black and white, but if you look, it's got a green or purple haze to it, depending on the base of the film. So every film stock, the base is a little bit different, or every brand's film stock is a little bit different. Kodak's does not seem to hold the emulsion in the wine quite the same as an Ilford HP5. So if you develop Ilford film with this, it actually stains it and it looks like this crazy burgundy tintype. Whereas with Kodak's, you're just getting a slight hint or tint to it, which you can see in some of the photos. And then someone's just
what I was going to say is when James and I have worked together on a few stories, and when he told me about what he was doing with the wine film, as an editor, just every sort of skyrocket went off in my head, and I was just this is the most amazing thing ever. This would be such an incredible thing to sort of bring to life in a magazine. And my concept for it, when we were talking about it, was almost like a gallery show, but on the pages of the magazine. So just, big lush photos, talking about the winemaker, talking about the process, learning a little bit about James. I just think the idea that you have these winemakers and they're all so unique and they have such incredible personal stories of how they came to the winemaking. They're all independent winemakers. And then the idea that you're locking that wine right into the photograph itself, that to me is just fascinating.
It's
and the other thing about it is so unique is that they all have a story to tell. And when you look at James's photographs, they manage to capture something about that winemaker that's, I just think, very ineffable. James has a great quote in the story where he says, when you shoot someone's portrait in this way, you're not just trying to, you're not taking a driver's license photograph, right? You're trying to represent who that person is with the image in a very nuanced way. So if you look at these portraits and you get to know these winemakers a little bit through the words, you're getting a really cool sense of who they are. And that, as an editor, I'm just that is the coolest thing. I love bringing that to life in the magazine.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about it is that, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to just compliment you. Recently, I saw someone comment about a photo of yours, and they said that they could hear, when they look at your photos, they can hear them, hear it, and they're loud. And
No, you're
even
just so
looking
loud
at these,
that people can hear your photographs, man.
even looking at these,
All right.
you can just hear the laughter in all of them.
So
don't know. I love
everybody,
it.
you use the term Sonoma's Grand Cru Vineyards. Sam and Bart first.
Back to the iconic vineyards list.
Well, no. What does it? How do you define Grand Cru?
Right. Ping pong.
How do you do Grand Cru?
Master.
What does it define? Are there? I mean, does that mean first label in?
I mean, if you were in a French
Right.
AOC system,
Right.
Love her.
the great DNC speech,
Hey, it's on the cover. I just
and it's also
figured I'd
my
ask
daughter's
about-
initials.
Thanks, Brian.
If you're in the French AOC system, obviously it means something, and certainly, while that is not, doesn't go back hundreds of years, it goes back. There's enough sort of like institutional knowledge, cultural knowledge with those vineyards that give it the cachet that demands the pricing and the sort of reverence. It's interesting. Sonoma wine industry is 200 years old. Let's call it 200 years old. Maybe we are getting to the place where we can start to identify that level of cachet in these vineyards. And I imagine that if you went back into some records of French cultural records from before the Grand Cru system was put in place, there was probably cultural references to those vineyards that added to that grand. So I guess, the kind of ping pong the question back to Abby. When I see this and think about this, basically, maybe somebody else has put it in these similar terms with a similar list, or maybe you're the first. Do you see that as part? I see it as at least establishing the historical record of these places in one list that, as we move forward, can be built upon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Sam, I think you're totally right. I mean, I think that, so this was like the cover story for the issue, and I've never seen anyone try to sort of quantify this for Sonoma County in quite this way before. Yeah. A couple years ago, I think Wine Spectator did a top 10 Chardonnay vineyards in the state of California, and they were sort of working back from the site to the wines, and I really loved the idea. I mean, I've wanted to do this story for years, and it finally came together this year because it was an extraordinary amount of research to try to kind of work backwards. But what we wanted to do is start with the sites and then work backwards to recommend wines to try from those places. And the reason why I think this story is so interesting is, well, it's bold to sort of make this claim that these are, iconic growing sites for Sonoma County. But the reason why I think this is an interesting story is it works on sort of two different levels. If you're new to Sonoma County, this cover story, this iconic vineyard story, is a really good sort of first glance or first look at, what our industry represents. And Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Zinfandel and, these things. And here are some names to know and some things to seek out. So I think it works on a kind of an introductory level if you're newer to Sonoma County and want to get a good sense of the wines. And then on a deeper level, one thing that I thought was super interesting is that you can use these vineyard sites, and if you're a super wonk and you love Pinot Noir, you can use this story and say, oh, Gap's Crown, I want to seek out a couple different Pinots that are made with fruit from that site and compare the expressions, and compare that winemakers, work with that fruit. So I like this story because it's on sort of two different levels. A caveat to this story, which I think is really interesting, we're going to have to do another story like this, I think, in the years to come, because in this story, we were so fascinated by the idea of multiple winemakers working with fruit from one site. We didn't really include estate vineyards,
right?
Because we wanted to sort of start with that concept of here are sites like Rocchioli or Gap's Crown or, Montesio or Monterosso, where that fruit is going to sort of multiple winemakers, and so you can compare. So I feel like we need to go back and do a whole other
The
story.
monopoles. Isn't that what a monopole is? The monopoles of Sonoma
Exactly.
County.
Kind of like the state.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Bart.
it's really fun. I don't know. So we talked to a bunch of different winemakers. We talked to sommeliers. We talked to Bart for this story. It was really fun to work on.
You know, you talk about old Grand Cru, etc. But you know, Bart, you're a young label. But I think this whole thing that you're doing in Glen Ellen is just so on brand and perfect. You've really crafted something really nice there. I want to tell you that. I mean, you have to have new growth to support the old. But we asked James
New growth
about
in
his
an old building.
New growth in
New
an
growth
old
in an
building.
old tank.
I don't want to
It's
brag,
probably
but I
old
was
growth redwood.
one of the first to try art
Abby.
stuff at the tasting room.
At the new place?
At the new place. It was very fun. Me and Ben went. We loved it.
We asked
So
James
cool.
about his favorite photo.
And then we
What
interrupted
was your
him.
favorite time?
I don't think I answered.
What was your favorite time in doing the story? Your favorite vineyard moment in writing?
Oh my gosh.
Say Rossi, say Rossi, say Rossi, say Rossi.
Well, I live in Kenwood. Like, I live really close to Rossi Ranch. Like, I live just around the corner from Rossi on Warm Springs. So Rossi is always kind of like a, personal, like, sort of hallmark spot for me. I'm very fond. Rossi Ranch is sort of like on the walk that my husband and I do with our dogs, like multiple times a week. So we're always like, what's going on at Rossi? So that was really special. But what was your question again? I'm so sorry.
Favorite moment in the research.
You know what was great is I think that we were able to get some really cool history documented in this story that hasn't been quite documented in quite this way before. Like I was talking with Tom Rocchioli about, his family's site, and certainly, people know that, but we were able to get some of that history down, get quotes from him about, what it's like to work that land that's been in his family for so long, or, let me see, talking with Morgan Twain Peterson about, Teldeschi Vineyards and getting that old vines in.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Well, right now.
So I think it's really fun to try to capture some of that true Sonoma County history. We're so local. I think we can really get at Sonoma County in a very special way. And I love capturing that. It means a lot to me personally.
Well, and thank goodness, because if you don't get it, then it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think we're sort of at an inflection point where the people who made these vineyards have this level of recognition. You think of David Hirsch. You think of
I know, right?
You think of Joel. Joel Peterson.
Right.
Putting my dad on the list. Where those guys are they're still active, lots of them, but they're at the phasing out and the handoff sort of period of their careers.
That's right.
And
That's right.
documenting this now, probably need to do more of it. As a collective, not just you. It's all your job, Abby. No, as a collective community, doing more of documenting what
to make
you
sure
talk
we
about
know
from-
that and
Yeah.
that it's here for the next generation.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree. Like when we went out so we photographed the cover at Hirsch Vineyards out at the coast.
Yeah.
With that guy Kim Carroll I was talking about a few minutes ago, and just this really special moment. And when we were out there, Jasmine Hirsch was taking us around the vineyards. We were kind of like scouting out some sites where we thought we'd come back to shoot the cover. Kind of bopping around, scouting around, looking around for sites. And then I sat down with their viticulturist, Everardo Robledo, from the Robledo family, farmers forever. And it was just really special to hear his story of farming that land for, close to 40 years. He lives on the
property.
Hirsch Vineyards site. He raised 4 children at that site. His son now farms with him. So capturing those stories too of, in their own voices, some of the farmers who worked these vineyards was really special. That was another element
also
of
super
the story.
I mean, these guys who've, I don't know.
I mean, like you.
I don't know
you know.
Everardo's history, but I think of guys who've worked for Enterprise Vineyards for 40 years and raised their kids here, sent them to college,
Exactly.
Own homes, vote, and started undocumented. And those stories of those people who built this industry, needs way more.
That's a whole. That's a whole. Issue
That's a whole.
itself.
That's a whole other issue. Yeah, 100%.
But I
we
think
should
it's
just take a moment
really-
to shout out just local community journalism because
Honestly.
no one is telling these stories.
Thanks,
And
guys.
there's someone who's like the reason I love Abby and what she does so well is like my start was at community newspapers, and that work is the most important work that any journalist is doing.
You are a curator for the county. And
Trying to be. Thanks.
and what
That's
is-
amazing.
Abby.
think of what you have under,
Really blushing now.
under your, it's not a jurisdiction, but under your watch. Look at this county. I mean, I know where you're from, so we talked about Pennsylvania. I mean, you're exactly where my wife came from.
That's right. Yeah,
And-
I grew
You
up on a
hitting on it
farm
right
in
now?
Pennsylvania.
We're in Pennsylvania.
The Lehigh Valley, Bethlehem, next door to, not far from the old steel towns. Allentown, I think, is right there. But
Yep.
Sort of like Central Western.
and you have look what you
Right,
have under your purvey. It's stunning. Sonoma County is vast and it's beautiful.
Well, we're so lucky too that we get to have an actual print magazine that's really, really pretty, like on nice paper that we get to hold in our hands. Still, so many publications like this have gone away, and we're very lucky to have an owner and a company that want to support and still have a magazine in print that we can all enjoy in this manner. And we have we have the digital on the website as well, but I think we're so lucky to have a print magazine that that is so high quality that celebrates this place. So I'm glad to hear you guys thinking that it's important.
Well, and it brings me back to a place of it's all about community, and to see, your friends and tastemakers and just people around you that you see every day, and then to learn that, oh my God, like the highlighting of the people who make Sonoma what it is. I love this. I love this magazine.
Noble work.
To go back to the fact of all these vineyards is the most important thing is none of these vineyards are new vineyards, right? Like
Right.
maybe the Kick Ranch would be one of the young vineyards,
Right.
in an area that hasn't been planted historically for years and years and years. I mean, if you look at here in the Sonoma Valley between Bedrock and Old Hill, where the Bunchus have what they call Rancho Agua Caliente, like that whole area has been planted well before they were ever known of that. Goes back to the
1850s,
days of when Chevet started the winery that he when he bought the mill from
Senator Hearst.
and Senator Hearst and those vineyards, like Chevet was farming 1,100 acres. They talked about in some of the history I found, and so if you think about all that,
Add up from like Barisha to Old Hill. Up into the state hospital, probably.
Right, exactly, and the bench that's behind the tasting room, So
On the
west side,
right,
like
where Griggs Vineyard is.
where
now.
Griggs Vineyard is, that was
Yeah.
historically planted, right? And so these are historic, going back
More Rossi Ranch wine for you, Abby.
150 plus years, where they were planted not under these names and not necessarily these vines, but historically still planted there.
The Phil Couturi, the vine is mortal, the vineyard is immortal.
Right.
The vines are going to die. The vines are going to get run over by a tractor. The vines are going to, get replaced because of economics. But the place, the soil, the dirt,
The energy.
the rocks, the energy, the aspect, doesn't change.
And-
the climate might be changing, but we deal with that.
Right.
What?
And then
Get out of here.
and then
Maybe not might be. The climate is changing. But other than that, the vineyard site doesn't change.
Right.
Put a house in the middle
the
of it,
difference
maybe.
in what we're doing here compared to Europe, what in the Grand Cru system, right, is like in Burgundy, the Grand Cru and Premier Cru, they're specific places, right? They're at different altitudes, and then different. They have to be a certain facing.
And a certain soil type.
And a certain soil type, so it's very specific. What we're calling out here is being Grand Cru, or what, trying to identify are places that are iconic in a historic way and have proven themselves. And so, yes.
Can you detail what he does and why that's important?
I'm sorry, John.
Talking about the historic vineyard thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I think that...
So...
And there's a bunch of those on this list. I think that, what Morgan is looking for specifically are vines of a certain age at those sites. I would argue, while that is obviously super important, the continuity of viticulture happening at a site with a historical record of those wines in existence. Monte Rosso is a great example. There's a bunch of, Dutton, places. Hunzel. We talked about that. The next harvest issue is going to be the monopoles of Sonoma County.
I did a big Hunzel story. I think for the harvest issue, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it was talking all about their farming practices and the history in that site. I love that story. It's one to look back on a couple of years back.
And then it'll be interesting to see how these things evolve too, because, you have situations where vineyards have been farmed by the same people for 40 years. And then there's a change in the farming and someone comes in and takes over. And how will that change? Different ownership, different farming. Will that change, or will the soil and the land truly continue, right? Can you screw it up?
Probably.
So
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Right.
Or can you do better? And so that'll be the next test.
Yeah.
Bart, I feel like you have you guys have so much sort of institutional knowledge. I feel like it's my job to
So we should be institutionalized.
just to make sure.
Like I said, we're going to do a winemakers pod feature for the next issue.
Right. Is but just to make sure, like we were saying earlier, that this history isn't lost. I feel this huge compulsion to just make sure that we remember all of these things. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why we like to have on the icons of our industry on the show, because at least we're capturing our version of what we want to hear from them.
So incredible.
So,
I love what you do.
Future podcast.
Oh.
James is over here trying to pitch stories.
I'm
live
over
on the
here pitching.
air.
I just think that the
I
winemakers
think it's a good idea.
pod would make
We
a
should
great
do
column in Sonoma Mag.
That would be
Not to put you on the spot.
That would be amazing.
Speaking of icons,
I always
Abby.
wanted to have a gossipy cellar rat kind of column in the magazine. Wouldn't that be so much fun?
Okay, that would be really, really fun.
I've always wanted to do that.
We're in. We're done. It's done.
Yeah, just all of the
lose friends.
zany.
You don't have that many. It's fine.
It's under
I know,
anonymous.
that's why
It's
I
fine.
gotta-
It's fine.
It's fine.
Save the ones I have.
They've made it this far.
Abby, I think you guys nailed it with the vineyard, and of course there could be a second issue at some point and talk about it. And I think the monopoles is another thing that's a huge part of it, because there are a lot of very iconic vineyards that only one winery makes wine from it, and who knows what other people would do. It'd be nice to free up some of those sometimes.
You can go back and taste a Bedrock Cayman Cabernet.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoa, what?
Right.
There's a couple vintages of it.
The Bedrock made or Cayman? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and didn't Bunches get some Cayman Cab one year? I don't know if they.
I like that these
I
are
don't know
people
that
can
it,
text right now.
I don't know that it got put in the bottle with
Abby,
that.
I'm manifesting that this
it
becomes
was
a
a
book.
single bottling.
Oh, yeah, that would be beautiful.
I manifested.
But then there's other places like that.
Yeah.
You can look at Repris. Moon Mountain Vineyard has a historical record of winemaking and great wines from the 70s.
Right.
Glen Ellen Vineyards,
Right.
and then the 80s and 90s with Carmenet. So, yeah, we could help. We could help with the monopoles of Sonoma County list.
Yeah, it was so.
That's because it could get pretty interesting.
Oh, it would be amazing. I think just in terms of capturing the history, that's a story that has to be done. It really is kind of the next step. It would be so much fun to work on too.
Yeah.
So much fun to research.
In some cases, it's kind of a
You wanna write a
shame.
book?
Let's do it.
In some cases,
for
it's
it.
a shame that it's been that way. Because, if you look at Jack London Vineyard,
Right.
Only one winery has made wine from it since 1972 or something, and that winery has gone through full transition of like multiple ownerships and focuses, and something gets lost in that. And so who knows what Mike Benziger would have done with fruit from that, or what Joel Peterson or Morgan would have done from fruit from that, because that is a truly unique piece of property in Sonoma Valley,
right?
Where it's at.
Talk about historical value.
Yeah. So, but until that changes, we just have one record of what it is.
Until there's a stalking horse bid for Kenwood Winery also, whatever the fuck that means.
Woof.
I just got a text from my wife to make sure I pick up wine.
Shut up, Brian. Shout out your wife.
Just
Shout out John's
a
wife.
bunch of 4-packs, man.
More cans and we got boxes back. We got the boxes back in.
I think she's trying to cut down her serving size. Not
so 3
Get her
liters.
smaller glass.
Okay, again, did you actually tell us what your favorite vineyard to visit was?
She really, really diplomatically avoided that question.
But the
where
answer
did
was
you-
Rossi.
The answer
Clearly,
was
because
Rossi.
she blushed when she said
Okay,
it. Cut her mic. Cut her mic.
tell me an average day. What'd you do?
Oh, when I'm working on the magazine?
Yeah, no, I mean, in the
Oh,
these
for working on
articles,
this?
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. An average day is kind of a mix of different things. Usually talking to people on the phone, looking at photography,
Harassing James to make
doing
sure he's
some
on point.
interviews.
Keeping James on deadline.
Yeah, calling up people and just like wanting to pick their brain about interesting things and following the curiosity, like following where the story leads, always trying to keep that sense of place and season.
Did you have any surprising things happen during this whole process? Like, is there anything that, I don't know, maybe things that you learned or obstacles that maybe have come up or fun joys? I don't know.
It was just great to go down the rabbit hole. Like I remember I was trying to sort of noodle my way through some of the history about the rock pile AVA, for instance. And I was trying to there's so much history in the rock pile and I couldn't find a lot that was going on. I made some calls and talked to some folks. And so I think...
Because it all got buried at the bottom of Lake Sonoma.
Right. Totally. But I mean, it was fascinating to be able to go back and try to tease out, okay, what are some of the threads here and who were the founding families who went out to the rock pile and to that, part of the county and first planted fruit there or first planted grapes there and harvested that fruit. And, the Moritsons and Florence Vineyard, it just was so much fun to see. And to work through. Oh, you know what is funny about this story? This magazine hit newsstands maybe 2 days ago, and I had interviewed Jack Florence for the Iconic Vineyards about Rockpile. And I was driving down 101 and I saw a truck go by and it was a Florence Vineyards truck. And I was like, oh, it has to be a good sign. It's a good sign that the issue is going to do well. And because I was driving by, I was like, there's a truck. So I don't know. It's so fun. I mean, I love working on this harvest issue just in general. Every year, in early August, I see that first truck go by and every year I just feel like I want to run away and join the circus. You guys are so lucky. We're all so lucky to kind of get to do this, but
it feels like a circus. That's
yeah.
I appreciate you saying that as we're 1 week into harvest and I'm
Right.
I am sleep deprived and delusional.
I'm like,
talk to us in
Sam
mid-October.
and Bart, how are you even here?
Sam just started today. Well,
I started today. And
Yeah, you harvested. You said you harvested your first fruit this morning.
First fruit this morning, and it was the total lazy man. I woke up I forgot to set my alarm. I woke up at 6, but then I knew they weren't starting my grapes until 7:30 or so. So it was. I felt pretty spoiled. But
Do you have
I could
any
ease into harvest life by stopping at Dive Bar Coffee on my way, and it was
shout out to Dive Bar Coffee.
It was not a rough
And then I
4
got there at
a.m.
7:40, couldn't find him, so I just flew the drone around for a while and went home.
You found us eventually. I flipped the drone.
Me, I stayed on the
Do
not
you have
that big a
any
vineyard.
start of harvest traditions, Sam?
very tall vines.
Do I have any start of harvest traditions? I'm not like a big traditions
Sleeps in.
guy.
Or like
I forget to set my alarm the night before the first pick. That might be the
I'm gonna
tradition.
go with these smokes a start of harvest joint.
Yeah. You say yes to a J, not measure J.
Yes to any J but measure J.
Do I? I mean, I probably trim my beard. I probably subconsciously
You get
trim my
cleaned
beard.
up for
Yeah.
Do you do the I don't wash my car thing?
No,
Yes, but that's just like all
But
the
just
time.
right.
not traditionally, but not superstitiously.
Do you do the I don't get a haircut
What's that?
thing?
Well,
Yeah.
he trimmed his beard, which
Yeah.
prompted me for some reason to trim my beard. But
Right.
because he did a better job.
Yeah. What about you, Bart? Do you?
Do you have a pre-harvest tradition?
I don't think so.
Harvest beers with Todd Jolly.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a yearly
or
thing.
superstitions.
Superstitions.
No, I don't.
Little
no,
stitions?
not superstitions, not little stitions.
Okay.
I try to just spend a lot of time out in the vineyard because that's my weakest link. So try to learn and listen to growers. I've never. I know a big thing. You know what? I always have my harvest hat. I
Okay.
figure out what my harvest hat's going to be. But I've never. Harvest tradition is a lot of guys grow mustaches or beards, and I've just never done that. I've
Okay, I'm
never
holding you accountable.
grown one.
Please do that.
It doesn't work.
Bart-
Let's
It doesn't
try.
grow.
We can do it. I believe in you.
Grow.
Let's all. Can we get a show of hands?
Just a
Two
Ted
things Bart
Danson.
needs a soul
It's not
patch.
going to happen.
Soul patch. Soul patch.
No, I want to see a long.
The
one of
soul
those
that I
big
listen to is
mustaches.
on my.
Fu Manchu.
How's harvest going? It's going well, I think. There's the everyone's tale of unsold fruit thing that's going around.
Yeah.
Which is maybe like the biggest bummer side of it. A lot of people sort of pulling back on what they're making. The interesting thing is, it was such a hot midsummer that I think we were all going into it thinking things were going to be super early. And what I'm seeing is, sort of fairly historic average pick dates on most things. I think that hot midsummer sort of like shut things down, kind of almost delayed more than sped up.
It's still early though.
I don't know. I'm going to pick Viognier on our historic earliest date would be Monday, and we might pick it Monday. So. I mean, Merlot first coming in, which we picked this morning on September 5th, might be pretty fucking early, but I've
Yeah.
never picked Merlot before, so I have no idea.
The people are picking Cabernet up on Moon Mountain early, and granted, those are early pickers, but it's still early. It does seem early to
I
me.
mean, are you comparing this to last year though, or like?
Well, last year was
Tradition, I mean-
my own internal clock.
Oh,
right?
I see.
Super scientific.
Yeah, super scientific.
Yeah.
How often do you get Labor Day weekend off? Not very often usually if you work at a big winery, because you're spanning the globe from, early fruit from warm areas, whether it's Alexander Valley Sauvignon Blanc, right? And then, what are you doing at Thanksgiving? In that case, on the other side, is it some Syrah from some cool area, that stretches it out there. So, but yeah, for me, it seems a little early.
Yeah, maybe. Not as early as the July weather
Correct.
would have thought would be.
Right.
I think that's maybe kind of like where we're at. Settling back into sort of a normal early.
Right. I do feel that there's a lot of stuff there that, like, one true bad heat spike would just kind of push things.
But you know what
too fast.
we've seen is it went from like a medium crop, and there's so much soil moisture still from like 2 big winters in a row that the medium crop in places with like shatter, the berries did what we kind of want them to sometimes and sometimes don't, which is sized way up, and things that are coming in we thought were low are coming in high as far as yields, which to me also means it's going to take them a little longer to get ripe.
Right.
So I think that as maybe it started early and there's a bunch of stuff early on the early side that's going to continue to sort of like drag and kind of get stretched out time wise. So we'll see.
It is going to be interesting because these phone calls from growers that have fruit, sometimes you have those and it's like, I got 1 or 2 tons, and now it's like I got
30.
I got 10 to 12 to 15 to 30, right? And then people who are saying, "Oh, I'm bringing in 10 tons," and they end up bringing in 14.
Yeah.
So it's
sorry. I accidentally picked 7 extra bins. Bye. Yeah. I don't know any growers who do anything like that.
Exactly.
Oh, you guys are highly entertaining today.
We're fine. It's, maybe it is the first day of harvest caffeination that's going on. You get that.
You've been waiting all year for this.
Adrenaline boost.
It really
I also
is.
got a big adrenaline boost from the Measure J hearing last night at the city council, so that fired me up.
Yeah,
Tell us about it, Sam.
That's
Tell
a
us.
very good
Tell us.
thing.
Preach.
Bart, please.
Speak on it.
Yeah.
Nope, Sam.
Wait, I don't. That's all.
all right.
I set it up.
No,
Bart,
Sam,
Bart,
please.
Bart.
John. If you ask a question, you got to let people answer.
Why?
Go, Sam, go.
It went really well. The city council was considering a resolution to be in opposition to Measure J as the city of Sonoma's official position on it. And it was not concerning until Tuesday night when the Yes on J people tried to set up a booth at the farmers market. And if you know anything about the farmers market, getting a booth at the farmers market is a highly coveted, difficult process, and you have to have a permit and go through the things. And they do let political campaigns and politicians and candidates set up booths, but you have to do it ahead of time. Go through the Yes on J people set up like a guerrilla booth, and then were asked to leave, and then went to the very edge of the farmers market just outside the boundary and set up their booth again.
Boo.
So we,
And me without my water balloons.
yeah.
I like the energy of it. I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
On the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, we sort of knew that they were going to turn out to this meeting. And so, the Farm Bureau put out a call for Sonomans to show up and speak in sort of awkwardly in opposition to the measure, but in support of the resolution. And the city council listened to everybody and some very spacious claims from the other side, and then listened to some farmers and this great kid who's in 4-H talking about how much she loves her animals, breaking down on the podium. I got up and said a few words, and the city council voted 4-0 with one person absent in support of the resolution. And so it's they're out there. They are twisting reality to try and push their...
When you say they voted in favor of the resolution.
In favor of the resolution to oppose the measure.
Got it. Thank
Yes.
I thought it was interesting, the group.
And it's so...
It is, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, vote yes on no. Or no on yes, I'm not sure.
I thought it was interesting, the group that was there after outside, all kind of converging
At the end of the
at
sidewalk
the end of
there.
the
I thought I
sidewalk,
went the other direction.
trying to figure out what their next stand was, or maybe how they were getting back to wherever they're going.
Why you didn't invite me to this? So wow.
But a local woman whose family had a dairy here, talking to them and still just trying to explain to them that they don't even really truly understand what they're arguing for, because what they're proposing is not actually what's going on.
Right.
Well, and also, speaking from my wife's perspective, who, when she found out what this was about, was like, what the F? She signed a petition outside of Sonoma Market because they're like, do you want to ban factory farms? There's a picture of like a mangled sheep. And you're like, of course I hate that. And then you're like, oh, wait, you mean any sort of community agriculture wise, so you can build a subdivision named after what used to grow there? Right. Like, that's gross. Yeah. It's gross.
No, I just keep driving through Sonoma County, and anytime you see like a dairy barn and a bunch of cows on a hill, go, oh God, look at that awful factory farm. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's what they're talking about. And you drive by, and even if, they said, oh, there's Purdue chicken farms in Sonoma County. And I Googled that, and there are some family farms that contract with Purdue chickens in Sonoma County, and you Google it, and it's like, an old faded stucco West Petaluma farmhouse and like 4 long barns. And you're like, this is, and that's what, like, I think, and I didn't say this when I spoke last night, and I'll keep talking about it. I sort of feel like manipulated by these people into like having this pro factory farm stance, which is such fucking utter bullshit that like I hate factory farms. What we have in Sonoma County is like so far from that that it's offensive to even talk about it.
Not to mention, a lot of the propaganda that they're circulating and a lot of the footage that they're using was not filmed here.
Of course not. I mean, that's
And
the thing. It's like,
B,
oh, here's this chicken on a laminated piece of paper that was in Sonoma, and you're like, how the fuck do
I had a
know?
fun deep dive Googling some of the people that are behind this and the organizations that are behind it one night, and I'm not going to say what I found, but let's just say, without mentioning names, that if you're convicted of fraud and sexual assault, then maybe it's a little weird that this is your focus. I don't know. It seems like you have other personal growth things to work on.
On the other hand, it's just become so valid because it seems for some reason north and west Petaluma and Guerneville, the exact areas we have spoken to farmers from, they had somehow a tremendous turnout for not their major, but a huge demonstration. So, and I know it was targeted.
Yeah, there's like March in Petaluma, and
it was very visible. But I think we have the sustainability in our vote no on Measure J stance. I think we can carry it through. I think it's growing on the right side. Finally, somebody's paying attention.
I think we can vote it through, but that also let's not make anyone at home think, oh, it's going to carry.
Right. Absolutely.
Get the fuck out and vote.
Understand the assignment.
I think we have to remember, like what Doug Bretta said, the reason why they started here in Sonoma County is because so many farming communities are typically
deep red.
Deep ag, but they're also conservative.
Deep red.
Deep red, yes.
Yeah.
And we have a certain amount of blue here, and they were trying to take that and kind of turn it on the county, turn it on itself.
Yeah.
So they're trying to take advantage of who we are here, and that's even worse.
And it does. It feels like we're like sort of turning Sonoma County and Sonomans against each other.
Yeah.
Which is a fun thing for organizations that are not based in Sonoma,
right?
Led by people who are not from Sonoma to weaponize. That's fun.
The interesting thing is, in a really amazing way, they've united the farming community and the rest of the community in Sonoma County, in opposition to them. But, I'm talking to chicken farmers and dairymen from Petaluma about, sourcing their compost, sourcing their shit. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party of Sonoma County are both united against this.
Which is actually interesting, because if you look at a very split country and you look at a very split political spectrum, one of the last great bipartisan bills was the Farm Bill, the AMP bill.
Right.
Because you know what, guys? Farms, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They effed around and now they're finding out.
Yeah.
People need to figure out where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, hey, Abby.
Hey.
I'm sure you cover issues, but, you have another whole thing about this. You have to publish a magazine 12 times a year, or
We're 6 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Every other month. Yeah.
Well, it's a massive undertaking. I know the publishing business well, and it is. You source from a lot of people. Who are your favorite people to go to for input around Sonoma Valley, both visually and I know I'm talking besides James and Mary.
I gotta go crush grapes, guys.
You good, Sam?
Are you going to Magnolia?
Sam?
Yeah. Or are you going to the Enterprise meeting?
No, we didn't do it.
Hey, Sam, before you leave, I want to throw this out there, everybody. So about a year ago, the last time we had Grenache Day.
Yes.
Remember Chris Cherry was up.
Yes.
And his wife was with him.
Yes.
Who
Joanne.
Joanne just passed away recently. So I want to shout out our
love to the
thoughts
Cherry family.
To the Cherry
Thoughts are
family.
with her, yeah.
That was
The R.H. Drexel obit that's on Jeb Dunnick is fantastic, and I think I don't think it's paywalled. I think it's available to read if you go on there, even if you're not a member. So. Well worth reading it. She was an amazing person and a champion of organic and regenerative farming.
Absolutely.
And definitely kindred spirit.
I also, I think Sam leaving for Magnolia means that James and his camera also have to leave for Magnolia. So thanks,
Brian,
everyone,
sit
for
in
listening.
and talk about all the things we have going on.
Man, I thought we were going to go get fried green tomato sandwiches at
On the way to
Valley.
Magnolia.
Okay.
Let's go.
Well, Abby, yeah, we have been so entertained this afternoon. It's it's an easy thing to talk about, and you guys photograph, you document. Right here is the thing. It's a neighborhood. This is really community. I've lived in Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, and we've had great friends, great communities, and it's all about where you hang out. I mean, Brad, this isn't exactly too much different than it was in like 1980 or 90 or 2000. I mean, you find these neighborhoods, and Joan and I moved here about 12 years ago. And we have just kind of really tried to blend in as much as possible. I mean, we enjoy this whole thing so much, but it's so vast.
Well,
and I haven't been able to get to these different parts. Beyond Guerneville and up the Deep Woods area, what's the big men's hangout in the woods up?
oh my gosh.
The
Bohemian Grove.
That's it. Yeah, thanks.
Cursed.
But nonetheless, that's a small part of those woods, and those woods are just incredible. And that's Sonoma County, and then you go to the coast. I mean, you must have a ball covering this.
Yeah, I think the best part of my job is that it is so connected to friends and neighbors. I mean, Sonoma County is a small town no matter where you live. I live in Kenwood, and I love it. It was an amazing place to raise my boys. I think that, we are such a series of small towns and of neighbors and connection. And with the magazine, I think we're always trying to represent that sense of place and season in a very specific way, so that, our September, October issue feels like harvest, and it's early fall, and it's that golden time, and, and a January issue should feel like the rainy season and mushrooms and green, we're always trying to think very, very seasonally. I often say exquisitely seasonally, and just try to represent this place. The best part of my job, I have to say, is that every day I'm continually surprised at the amount of creativity that finds its way here to Sonoma County. Like every day someone's telling me about this amazing artist that I need to know about, or this, winemaker is trying this really cool thing that I've never seen before, or, from here I'm going to interview this woman who's a jewelry maker, and her husband, just the most extraordinarily creative people, I think, find their way to Sonoma County. And I get to sort of celebrate that and share those stories and talk about our neighbors. And that's why I really love it. I think every day I'm surprised.
Should I introduce you to some dairy men?
Yeah.
A couple chicken farmers? What do you think?
Right.
Is there a story there?
Right? Yeah. Well, I know. So the magazine is a sister publication to the Press Democrat newspaper. So they're really, they're really heavily involved in some of the day-to-day reporting of Measure J.
I wasn't even talking about Measure J. Just part of what Sonoma County is, right?
Actually, yeah. I mean, so I'm, believe it or not, I think sort of a whole year at a time about our issues. And our March-April issue is going to be the farming issue.
Cool.
And so we're going to have a series of stories that are just kind of like,
I mean, there are so many more small farms in the county than even just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It kind of started with restaurants kind of doing farms, wineries putting in farms for either their workers or for, pairing with a restaurant. But it's really amazing now. There's just standalone farms that, are supplying restaurants and stores with their product.
Glen Ellen Star is a perfect example because everything they get from Mike Benziker, right?
From Kentucky Farms.
Yeah.
I think they get almost all produce.
What a classic example.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, cool.
All right. Abby, shout outs.
Let me see. Well, we had a really good team reporting that cover story. So it was me, Tita Caputo, and Carrie Sweet on that cover story with the most iconic vineyards. Obviously, we had James Joyner for that feature on the capturing the images in wine. We have a really incredible art director at the magazine named Ryan Michaud, who I work with really closely, who just makes the magazine look terrific.
Nice job. If you
Yeah.
can get it, yeah.
So thanks, guys. And thanks
All
for
right,
having me.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks
Bart.
for coming on.
And cheers
shout
to
out.
James for that gorgeous story.
Oh yeah.
Bart?
Shout outs. Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers is putting on the Vintage Festival coming here at the end of the month. The Harvest Dinner at Gunlock Bunchu is sold out. There's probably literally a half a dozen tickets for the grand tasting on Saturday night available, so you better get those. But there's always the daytime festival. Come hang out in the plaza in Sonoma.
And they're doing some old school shit, right? The sausage,
The salami toss.
salami toss.
The firemen will be back doing the water fight with the keg. Grape Stomp, of course. There's plenty of space. Challenge your neighbors or co-business to a Grape Stomp.
Abby, do you do that?
My boys do the one at the county harvest fair.
Mm-hmm.
They call themselves the Sawdust Brothers, which they've decided that that's what they want to name their band someday.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
there
like a
you go.
bluegrass.
Yeah.
My dad's a folk musician, so anyway. But my boys do the Grape Stomp at the one at the fairgrounds.
So that's going on. Dinner at the Glen Ellen Star with Dane Sellers. Tickets will be on sale in a couple
when's
weeks.
that?
Abby,
Will you please tell
test
me? That sounds
yes,
amazing.
I will let you know.
Well, Tristan and I both want to go, so that's 2 tickets down. That
Yeah.
Same.
just mark us down.
That sounds awesome.
What else is going on? I'm just waiting for grapes. I'm waiting for harvest.
Yeah.
What are your dates?
I have no idea when
Just when it
it
happens.
feels
What
right.
do you anticipate over the next couple of weeks?
I don't know. The
In
Zinfandel.
month and beyond, yeah.
Yeah, Zinfandel's, probably within a week and a half or so. Sauvignon Blanc, probably the end of, or first of next week. Petite Syrah will be a few weeks. Rossi, whenever Phil says so. It's kind of like that.
The authentic sounds of Sonoma.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? What's going on? What do you guys got coming up?
3 winemaker dinners. The people that own Beach Chalet in San Francisco also have a restaurant in Oakland and one in Marin. So that's going to be 12th, 19th, 26th, right? If my math is
I
correct.
used to always go there when I lived in the city. I love that
Institution,
place. Yeah,
right?
totally.
And then we are almost have locked down all the details on the final vinyl Sunday of the year, October 6th, out at the Denmark Barn, and that's going to be with a band called the Bone Diggers. So it's all going to be Paul Simon songs.
Second to last final Sunday of the year.
So, are we counting New Year's Eve show?
The vinyl release party.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Well,
What?
once I have a date for that, I'll get you on. And then we all.
We'll be back next week with more details on that.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with more frenetic commentary from James, not near a microphone.
All right, everybody. Thanks, Abby, Marrielle. What a pleasure.
Hey, can
James, as always. Yeah, Brian.
Can I just
go ahead.
mention
I
to
thought
our
you were
wine
done.
club members at 16600, if you're a standard wine club member, come pick up your wines and taste some wine. And if you're a custom,
Oh, yeah.
I have chained Jasmine to her desk. She's wearing a onesie. She doesn't even go home anymore. She just sleeps on the couch in there.
So many diapers.
So reach out to Jasmine, and she's got some fun stuff going on. So
We always love her.
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah.
Love you guys. All right. See you guys.
Awesome.
Oh, you love
Thanks for
us?
listening. Yo, certainly. Absolutely. Why not? It's easy. And then you've got your duck call. All right. Talk to you
guys are
next
the
week,
best.
everybody.
Thank you so
Take care.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you
See you
so
next
much,
week.
Abby.
Bye.
Review.
Bye.
Refer. Love you.